If you, like me, haven't been living under a rock for the past couple weeks, your news is probably all about one guy. He's the 45th and now the 47th president of the United States. It's Donald Trump. This guy is like the biggest news we've had all year. Everybody's talking about him. And as a finance channel who doesn't really want to talk politics, I've seen so much news about this guy that it's almost impossible not to. Now, I'm a Canadian teacher as my day job, and I teach social studies, so I actually do talk politics enough. And so I'm not here to talk to you about what I think about people's policies, what I think about politics. We're here to talk about money and investing in Canada. And today, really, we're going to be talking about Canadian oil and gas. Is this industry in trouble? Is this industry about to take off? And how do these sort of political moments and these big political figures impact these parts of our portfolio? Welcome back, everybody, to Golden Arch Investing. My name's Liam, and as always on this channel, we talk about investing in Canada. And today, like I said, we're really talking a lot about the new president or president-elect of the United States, because he has some ideas that are very different from the way things work right now. And they're going to have an impact on not only these companies, but also our stock portfolios. And in fact, if you've been invested in most things over the last 2 weeks, he already has, because stocks have seen some meteoric rises, particularly small cap US stocks, anything connected to cryptocurrency, and all sorts of other American companies have just been going wild. As a Canadian investor, I now have to think a little bit about how the policy changes that might come into place will impact my own portfolio. And if you haven't been watching the news in Canada talking about Canadian oil and gas, the sort of conversation is broken down into two groups. So on the one side, we have people who say tariffs are going to kill Canadian oil and gas. People are saying they're going to be drilling so much more in the United States. It's so much cheaper to get American oil, and there's going to be a tariff on what Canadian oil costs to an American refiner or exporter. There's no way Canadian oil keeps up. On the other side, there's people who are saying, actually, I think we're probably going to be inside the wall of tariffs, so we're not going to be sort of subject to this, that Donald Trump is obviously more oil friendly than Kamala Harris was, and so maybe this is a good thing for the oil and gas industry as a whole. And that is actually going to be a huge boon, because maybe like big pipelines are going to be built and stuff like that. And so I'm stuck here in the middle looking at one news source saying this, one commentator over here, just negative, and one commentator over here, positive. And so what am I supposed to do? Well, unfortunately for me, it's not really clear what's going to happen. And unlike some politicians and political analysts who talk on the news a lot, I'm not going to pretend I understand exactly what any administration anywhere around the world is going to do. I'm not going to sit here and think that I am smart enough to totally understand not only the actions that are going to be taken by a political group or by a government and their impact. I don't know. I can't know. I can't see the future. There are so many things that could happen that would impact Canadian oil and gas. I also understand that regardless of these big moments, these big dramatic pieces, the things that are said on the news and the things that happen in real life are likely not going to be the same. And again, I'm kind of stuck in this teacher mode, but like I talk to my students about, people who talk politics have some incentives that might be contrary to what you and I would like to hear. Let's start with our news reporters who have been talking about potential policy changes. Well, how do they get paid? They get paid by having people watch what they do, just like this video. I'm not monetized, but theoretically, my objective should be to have people watching this video for as long as possible in order to have a higher return. And so it's incentivized for these news articles to take the most extreme approach and to say, oh my God, big deal, a big thing is going to happen. We understand this. You know, we have an authority figure here who's going to sit with us and talk with us about this thing that we want to talk to you about because we think people will click on that. Is that what's going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. But they're incentivized to make us think that one of the extreme outcomes, either good or bad, is going to happen. What about politicians? Well, as politicians, they're incentivized to make us care about the items they're talking about. Because if we don't care, we won't go out and vote for them. Let's give an example that's a little closer to home here. Right now, the government of Alberta, which is the Canadian province that is responsible for the majority of our oil exports, has been making large political ad campaigns in order to scrap the cap, I believe is the term. Basically, they're saying that the proposed Canadian federal government emissions cap is going to kill the oil and gas industry. Alberta, being the home of so much of that industry, doesn't want this, obviously. And so they're saying, stop this. This is going to destroy our province. This is going to destroy our economy. This is going to cause us a huge amount of hardship. Is that the case? I don't know. Because again, I can't see the future. I mean, obviously, as somebody who owns oil and gas stocks, those companies don't want a cap on emissions because that theoretically limits the amount they can possibly expand and so limits my potential gains from investments. Is that going to happen? Maybe, maybe not. But it is incentivized that Danielle Smith, the Premier of Alberta, the leader of the province of Alberta, the leader of that government, tell us that it's going to be a bigger deal because that will incentivize more voters to get out and vote either directly for the Premier or for people aligned with the Premier. So it's just important that we keep that in mind when we're looking at these as investors. One of the most insightful quotes that I've seen is Warren Buffett saying that the stock market is essentially a mechanism for taking money from impatient people and giving it to patient people. Now I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially all of this drama is going to cause volatility in the short to maybe medium term. And all of this concern may or may not play out, but the stock market is predictive. It's going to move based on what people think happens. And so as an investor, not a stock trader, but an investor, my job is to watch, to see what happens in the market, and to make smart, emotionless decisions about my money. So the sort of big headline of this video is I'm not selling my Canadian oil and gas. I'm not even going to slow down my contributions to this industry, but I am going to do a couple of key things. First, I'm going to be picking players that can survive a downturn. What does that mean? Well, they have to be well capitalized. So they need to have a solid amount of either assets or literal cash on hand to cover any sort of shortfalls, because maybe there will be short-term tariff problems or emission caps that stop them from doing the things they want to do. Second, I am going to be finding good opportunities to buy. I'm not throwing every bit of cash that I have left over every month directly into these companies because I understand that the future is uncertain for them. And so their prices are going to be moving quite a bit. And so as an investor, I have the opportunity. I wait for moments when the price is low and I purchase there. And the thing is, I don't have to time the top. I don't have to pick the right moment to sell because these are dividend growth companies. The actual return on my investment isn't really going to come from me just selling the asset back into the market. It's going to come from those dividends and those dividends growing over time with cash flows. Now, obviously, that's at a more precarious position if the cash flows are cut off. But still, I believe these companies and the access to resources they have and the infrastructure they've put into the ground to export this wealth of natural resources we have here in Canada will survive. And so these big players like CNQ, these big players like Enbridge, these big players like Pembina, I believe they'll make it. And there's more. That is not an exhaustive list of the biggest players in Canada, but I've talked about this already, that those large companies have the best potential chance to make it out of this potential downturn, to survive even as their stock price goes low, for me to purchase those shares at a lower price, and as things get better in a potential future, I can sell those shares. Now the question is, what if it doesn't work out that way? What if these companies completely fail? What if there are large tariffs put on Canadian oil and gas? What if our largest trade partner doesn't want our oil and gas? I don't believe that'll happen, but even if these companies do fail, I'm not going to be putting 100% of my money into these companies. If you've watched a couple of my videos here, you understand that I have a pretty diversified portfolio. Not very diversified because it's just starting and I'm really focused on one geographic region. But still, even in my Canadian focused portfolio, I own the S&P 500. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing that protects your money and your investments better than diversification. It's the old adage that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Even if it's a really nice basket at a really cheap price, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. And so I'm putting myself in a position where I can protect myself from potential losses and I can move forwards into the future. And I think right now is a great moment for investors to be thinking about this, particularly investors who are invested in Canada and are invested in these energy stocks, because the headlines every day are incentivized to make you have an emotional response. They're trying to make you scared or make you excited or make you angry. And as investors, those emotions play against our goal of just having time in the market, of purchasing good companies and being patient, right? These headlines are trying to force you to sell. And so it's almost like an exercise for us as investors in patience. It's an exercise in buying the dip sometimes, and in making sure we keep our allocation smart. If oil and gas companies fall off a cliff in the next year, yeah, I'm going to be buying a lot more stocks, but I'm not going to be allocating 100% of my portfolio to one industry. And I personally don't think you should either. Again, I want to reiterate, none of this is my political opinion. I'm not somebody who really wants to talk politics on here. Again, I'm a teacher. I talk about politics in my day job, and there I also have to be very specific, not to share my opinions. And so don't take this as me either saying the Canadian government is good or bad, the Alberta government is good or bad, or Donald Trump is good or bad. I honestly only really care about how they impact my investments in this case. And right now, I don't know. I don't know how they'll impact my investments. So I have to make the smartest decisions for me. I'll wait. I'll see what happens, what comes to pass, what impacts it has, and I'll revise my choices down the road. And that's sort of what this video is about today. And I hope you found a little bit of value here. This is one of those moments where I'd really, really appreciate comments down below. I want to hear if you guys think you can let me know if you think Canadian oil and gas is going up or down. I've seen lots and lots of opinions about that recently. But also, if you have other sort of risk management strategies when big changes, political specifically, but big sort of changes in the world around your investments happen. Are you somebody who likes to diversify a lot more geographically, right? I don't own any assets out of North America, honestly. Yes, some of the companies own things out of North America. The S&P 500 includes all these other companies, but it's not like I'm investing in emerging markets or in East Asia or in Europe. I haven't really done that at all. Do you guys think that's a mistake? Do you think I should be investing in those regions? I don't know. Maybe you do. Leave a comment. And also, do you think that it really matters that politics are actually going to have a huge impact on the market? Or do you think that it's just sort of built up so people have an opinion? Because that's one thing I have thought about a little bit. I've wanted to talk about it in the past as people talk so much about political changes coming to pass. This is just a year full of politics, right? And I wonder, does politics actually impact the market? I know I've seen all the charts that say, oh, it doesn't matter who's president, the market always goes up. Yes, I understand that. But do you think it really is going to impact these kind of key industries that I'm looking at, like financials, like natural resources, like infrastructure and transportation? And with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, please like and subscribe to the channel. I talk about Canadian investing every week on this channel, and I'd really appreciate it.